So, how do you even begin to wrap your head around a faith that has literally shaped civilizations for 2,000 years? I mean, it is a massive undertaking. Today, we're going to explore one person's answer to that, a self designed curriculum that's like a scholar's map to the huge, sprawling landscape of Christian thought.
It's a huge question, right? Well, the source material we're digging into today is basically one person's personal roadmap for this incredible intellectual and, for many, spiritual journey. So let's see where this map takes us first. Okay, so the first major stop on this map, and really the only logical starting point, is the study of God itself. This is the bedrock, the foundation that everything else is built on. It's a field known as theology.
Theology, at its core, is all about answering the biggest what questions. I mean, think about it. Before you can ever debate or defend a belief system, you have to actually understand its central claims. So, what are the absolute essentials according to this map?
This map lays out the absolute must-knows. It kicks off with the gospel, the core message. Then it zooms out to see how that message weaves through the entire Bible, Old and New Testaments. From there, it dives into some really profound concepts like the Trinity, and then gets right to the very nature and character of God, what are called his attributes. These are the fundamental building blocks of the whole system. But here's the thing, it's not always so straightforward. Theology is a field filled with passionate debate. And one of the biggest debates of all is about salvation, or to use the technical term, soteriology. How exactly does it all work? Well, this is where we see some major competing schools of thought pop up.
And this really boils down a centuries-old debate over something that has huge implications, how a person sees their own responsibility versus God's ultimate control. On one side, you have Calvinism, which really puts the focus on God's sovereign choice. Then you've got Arminianism, which puts a major emphasis on human free will. And there are even views like Molinism, which tries to find a middle ground, a way to reconcile God's perfect knowledge of the future with genuine human freedom. This curriculum insists that to really get it, you've got to understand all sides of the conversation.
All right, so once you start to get a handle on what the core beliefs are, the map guides us to the next logical step, learning how to discuss them, how to defend them, and this brings us right into the field of apologetics.
And let's be super clear here. This has nothing to do with apologizing for your faith. Not at all. The word actually comes from the Greek apologia, which means to give a reason or a defense. It's all about the practice of making a rational, thoughtful case for what you believe.
Now, the crucial point here is that this isn't just some dusty academic exercise for professors in an ivory tower. This roadmap frames apologetics as a practical, relevant skill for anyone who wants to have thoughtful conversations about their faith. So, how do you even start? Well, it turns out there isn't just one way to do it. The evidential approach is kind of like being a detective, right? You're gathering historical clues, looking at logical arguments, and building a case piece by piece. The presuppositional approach, on the other hand, is much more philosophical. It basically argues that the Christian worldview is the necessary foundation to even make sense of things like logic or morality or science. So two very different strategies. So this roadmap suggests a pretty clear process. First, know what you're actually talking about. Define your terms. Then, understand the evidence you're working with. After that, get a feel for the different ways you can build a case. And then, and this is so important, practice having conversations that are reasoned and respectful.
And that brings us to the final, and you could argue the most crucial piece of our journey. We've covered the what and the why, so now we have to cover the how. Specifically, how to properly read and interpret the primary source text for all of this, the Bible. Okay, hermeneutics. That's a big fancy term, I know, but the idea behind it is actually pretty simple. It's the art and the science of interpretation. It gives you a set of principles to make sure you're understanding the text the way it was intended, instead of just making it say whatever you want it to say. And this right here, this is the absolute core principle. Exegesis is all about letting the text speak for itself, based on its history, its language, its context. You're drawing the meaning out of it. Eisegesis is the opposite. It's when you force your own preconceived ideas into the text. Our curriculum makes it crystal clear. One of these leads to understanding, and the other leads to total distortion. So to stay on the right path, the map points to two major guardrails. First, there's a principle called sola scriptura. That's Latin for scripture alone, which basically says the Bible is the final authority. And second, there's the analogy of Scripture, which is the simple but powerful idea that you should use the clear parts of the Bible to help you understand the more difficult or confusing parts. So after traveling through these three distinct regions on our map, what do we have? Well, what we've done is assemble a really powerful, integrated intellectual toolkit for understanding.
And here it is, all laid out nice and neat. Theology gives you the what, apologetics gives you the why, and, just as importantly, the tools to talk about it. And hermeneutics gives you the how, the skill you need to handle the source material responsibly. Each piece supports the others, and together they create a really solid framework for faith.
Because ultimately, this curriculum isn't about just hoarding facts or trying to win arguments. The real goal, the true destination of this entire journey, is to cultivate a deeper sense of discernment in a more profound, genuine understanding.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? While this particular map was designed for a specific faith, the principles behind it feel pretty universal. Knowing what you're studying, knowing why it's significant, and knowing how to interpret the source material, aren't those the essential tools for any real journey toward knowledge? Definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer.